Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneurial Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Latimer. Thank you again for joining us today. If you've watched some of our series before in the past, it'll resonate with you. What we want to do is we want to put out good vibes, good information out there for people who want to be prospective entrepreneurs or aspiring to do that. We want to be inspirational towards them. And hopefully some of the people we bring on our show today or anytime in the future, you can gain or garner a little bit of information and it can help you going forward. Today, we have a special guest today with us, Dr. Alyssa.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So she has a business right here up in Montgomery County area. Natural Balance Counseling is what it's called.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Can you share with the end user out there the journey and becoming a doctor of professional counseling and what that's meant to you?
Absolutely. So when I first started working in my teenage, adolescent years even, I always found myself working in human services. Okay. And so just working with individuals, people, but in a wide variety of cases. And so I wasn't really sure how I wanted to narrow it down, but I knew in my heart I wanted to work with people. Throughout the course of my life, of course, there was ups and downs like we all go through in early adulthood, sure. Right? But I found myself that I kept coming back to those one-on-one conversations and being so curious and fascinated by people's life stories. Their resiliency, it stands out to me so much what people go through, their strength, how they handle things, and the creativity I see in my clients, people in the community. It just astounds me. And I've always been that type A person that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it full force and be the best at it. And so I knew even early on in my career, I wanted to complete my doctorate just so that I really could be the best quality therapist, remaining current in current science and research, so we can give not just listening to our clients, but really a high level quality of care.
That's beautiful. I love that. So I think from everything that I'm hearing from you today is you just really want to help people out there. Is that a fair assumption?
Help and support, right? And I think that's a really important distinction of a lot of people when they come into therapy, they think, oh, someone's just going to listen and either it's a crutch or they're just going to encourage everything I'm saying or agree with me, which is not what therapy is. Therapy is really about finding and helping people find what's inside of them to help them support themselves. And so I work a lot with clients in saying that I'm not the expert talking down to you. I'm working alongside you to help you understand yourself better, your business better, your life better, and really help people enable themselves. I always say we want to work ourselves out of a job. That's our goal.
Right. No. You know, and it's I tell you what, Alyssa, it's a very controversial topic today, right? Because if you think about it, there's a lot of jargon out there, a lot of information out there about pharmaceutical companies and just normal doctors out there, yes. Medical doctors, as far as they want to keep you on that Ferris wheel, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And treat you, but not actually try to cure you.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
And I think that's beautiful that you're completely the opposite to that.
Yes.
You want to work yourself out of that
yes.
position.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find even in your profession that a lot of people in your industry, don't have the same alignment in regards to wanting to truly heal the person, that they just want to treat them? Do you think that's kind of you think it's prevalent or not really as much?
It depends on the population you work with.
Okay.
I've worked with a wide variety. I've worked with government agencies. I've worked with group practices. Yeah. And with where we're at now in our target market, I really don't see that a lot.
Okay.
I work with a lot of high performers, people who are really wanting to make a difference. And when they come in, they're ready to get the job done, which is what I love. And so outside of that, though, I do see a lot of people who are just wanting to enable and they stay in these same comfortable patterns, uh-huh. which is normal. Whenever we introduce a new behavior and I say, hey, let's try this, they go, well, that seems very unnatural. It's not me.
Yeah.
I say, that's exactly what we want. Because if you continued doing exactly what you've been doing, you're going to continue being in the same place that you've always been. Yeah,
complacency basically is what it is, right? And I always take the notion of if you want to be successful, if you want to make strides and improve in anything that you're doing, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable in life.
Absolutely.
And people don't understand that, right? You've probably seen this. I see this with my kids as well. Yeah. Like it's a growing trend that anytime they deal with adversity, mm-hmm. they throw their hands up, right? Mm-hmm. And we've got to get past that notion, right? There has to be this iterative process that you have to be able to break through. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you have to break through it, go around it, jump over it, go underneath it, whatever it takes, right? You have to be able to persevere. Mm-hmm. And as basic as that may sound, mm-hmm. it's becoming more and more difficult by so many people out there, right? And so that's why you come in,
Yes,
and you're able to kind of help them push through these barriers,
absolutely,
and find the person that they always knew they could be. They just can't find that person.
yes, absolutely, and really look at it from a holistic approach as well. That's why we work with individuals, couples, with relationships, and then we work with a lot of business owners, and even in their business too, helping them just completely reinvent the way that they do things, so that way they can push past those barriers that have kept them stopped before.
So Alyssa, you know how this works is I sent you over some questions. We're going to talk about specific topics. We're going to get a little bit off some of the main topics, and we're going to kind of ad lib as well. I think it always works better like that. We're going to talk about some topics that are very taboo today. Okay. A lot of people don't want to talk about, but you better have honest conversations. You better talk about those topics. You better address those situations, because if you don't, you're not going to be that person or that couple that you want to be without pushing through some of those barriers.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. In regards to the name of your company, Natural Balance Counseling, how did you come to that name, and what really motivated you to start your own practice?
Well, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I started for personal reasons. I started establishing my family, had kids, and I just wanted more control and freedom over my schedule. But beyond that, as I became established as a therapist, I realized I wanted more control over my brand, how I was showing up, and controlling my client's experience from really beginning to end. I have worked with a wide range of clients, and I really found that my niche and my heart were those high performers who are completely burnt out, overworking, very much like myself, in that we want to have it all. We grew up with the American dream, that we want the great family and the great career and great business and be home with our family and our kids, but realizing that was a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I wanted to find. And while we talk about this, finding this natural balance in life, is I tell people all the time, you can have it all. We just might have to change the way that it looks, and we want to make sure it doesn't all fall apart.
Yeah, you hit on a couple things that I want to kind of go back on. You mentioned becoming an entrepreneur and what really drove you towards that, and you said you wanted that freedom.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that resonates with not only myself, but so many other entrepreneurs that I work very closely with or have brought on the podcast as well, is it's not necessarily money driven, right? I mean, look, we live in a monetary society, an economic planet, if you will, and those things do matter. However, being able to control your own destiny, right? And being able to have that flexibility, to me was so much more attractive.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that you didn't work for the man per se, right? And then if you happen to be working for the man that's not so great man, right? They dictate your future, dictate your career, and dictate your whole life, essentially.
Yeah, they really do.
They do. And so when you said that, I think that's, you know, viewers, I think you got to hone in on that, because if that's not one of your wills, you're in it for the wrong reason. If you think you're going to go into entrepreneurship just to get rich and wealthy and all that, you're going at the wrong way, right? You have to embrace the journey. You have to understand that you are going to work differently. Okay. You have to be able to have a lot of autonomy to be able to be self-motivated and figure things out. And I know everybody says, you know, oh, I can get motivated. But when no one else is around, can you? Because that's the real key. And
it's not even really about just motivation, because there's so many times at 10 o'clock at night, I'm not motivated to do my admin work.
Discipline,
but I have to, right? There isn't that choice. And being able to see freedom, not just the freedom that comes from money, but the freedom in time. If my kid has something coming up at school, being able to move around my schedule, being able to also look long term, and explaining to my kids has been a really amazing journey about what entrepreneurship is, and explaining mommy's working really hard now doing this so we can build this. So next year, this will happen. And they're able to see that journey, which has been really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whether we like it or not as parents, we're a role model and we're a hero to our kids.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, someone says, well, I don't want to be a hero. I don't want to be, you are by default. It's the way it works, right? So, you know, you've heard that saying, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
It's so true.
It is very true.
Yeah.
You're a product of your environment. And for children, when their brains are molding, essentially, they're just, you know, grabbing all this information and they're just trying to establish who they're going to be later in life. And the people that are around them the parent or parents in this situation are going to have probably the most impact of any other individual. So it's almost like your fiduciary duty. You should want to be the best parent you can, right? And you're setting that example in your business as well. Let's talk about some of your training and your licenses as a professional counselor and how that shaped your approach to healthcare.
So a lot of people don't understand all the training that really goes into therapy. So all of us have obviously at least a bachelor's degree, mine's in psychology, which is really common. You can come in with other degrees though, topic areas, but then you have to backfill classes. But then we all go through a master's program in some sort of clinical mental health counseling. What this looks like, it's actually it's a very similar parallel to law school. And so we have a lot of the education and the knowledge, how trauma impacts the brain, growth and development of the brain, different relationship models and styles and all of that. But the second half of our training is actually a very intensive deep dive, actually working with clients. And so I graduated from a local university, and it's one of the top in the country for clinical mental health counseling. During our practicum, we work with community members. They get discounted or free counseling because they know we're students. And the audio sessions, of course, they know, but they were audio and visual bugged back to the control room, where our professors were able to live time give us feedback, give us kind of some direction on how to go. So we were learning live in the moment how to interact with people. And one of the biggest things too we learned in that was to take our own thoughts, beliefs, feelings, everything that was coming up, and put them aside. The old medical model taught us that we were supposed to be blank slates. Your feelings don't matter. You put it in a box. New and current research, and the way I compare it and explain it to clients, is that we take as therapists, our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and we put it in a bowl beside us, is how I visualize it. Because the current research is showing that for therapists who show up as a complete blank slate, while it can still be effective, it's not as effective as bringing in some of yourself as a person into the counseling room. Now, it's a very fine line. We can't project our own thoughts and feelings and beliefs onto the client, but we still want to recognize where we relate to them, where we do, have a personal experience, just so we can tap into that empathy and connect with them authentically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, the reality is if you're going to be able to help someone get through those barriers or get through their issues, they have to be able to relate to you. If they can't relate to you, I don't care how much knowledge you have, right? We talk about, you could have Dr. A and Dr. B over here, right? Dr. A could be, brilliant, but has terrible bedside manners, right? You're never going to go back to him. No matter what he says, right? You're going to be like, Dr. B, if he's more relatable, you're going to be much more receptive to at least try what him or her wants you to do. And so I think that that's very crucial, right? So if someone's looking for a counselor, someone like Dr. Alyssa here, you got to be able to relate. And, she's been trained in that. And not only that, I mean, your personality, it exudes you who you are as a person, right? And you can feel that energy and positivity. And I believe that, like, when you're working with someone, no matter what service you're doing for them, they feel your energy.
Absolutely. And research actually shows that the number one key defining factor in a therapeutic relationship is not the training or the background of the therapist. It's the rapport you have with the therapist. And so we actually build that into our model within the counseling practice. When people call in, they get matched with a counselor we think will be the best fit. But I tell them, we don't know until you go in that room. So at the end of that session, if you like your counselor, then feel free. Let's book out. Let's make sure that you can stay with them. If you don't, and we have a pretty high rate of matching, but if you don't, we actually waive the first session fee for them to try any of the rest of us in the practice, because I believe in that so much, that rapport building and building that relationship and the authenticity. Yeah,
you've got to have personalities that match, right?
Absolutely.
If you don't have, it doesn't matter, right? Like you have standardized testing out there. You have people with various different degrees and different levels of education, no matter what the field is. But if there's not a relatability factor that's associated, right? If you're not pushing through and getting through to that person, I don't care what your level of education is, what your intelligence level is. There's no way to measure someone who just cares more and that good vibe that you elude or exude, I should say, not elude, exude from your skin, right? And who you are, they pick up on that.
Yes.
And,
absolutely.
I think all too often, a lot of professionals lose sight of what they're doing. They focus on, well, I have my, my education here, I have my credentialing there. People should bow to me, or you know what I'm talking about.
Yep,
You've seen those type of people, right?
Absolutely.
And they miss the whole point of servicing the client. They miss the whole agenda of actually making a difference, because they're not coming to you because you have a degree. They're not coming to you as a certification. They're coming to you as a problem solver.
Yes.
And I think all too often people lose sight of that. And I think that, you've got to find the right person who is willing to invest in you. And if you're going through some counseling sessions, or you're looking for a counselor, I can tell you, Dr. Alyssa, I mean, I can feel it in you. So, I mean, I think that it resonates in everything that you're doing. I want to talk about some of the different services that you offer. Can you kind of elaborate on what those services are and what some of your clients' needs might be, and how you can service them in that regard?
Absolutely. So we started out just a general counseling center, but we wanted to make sure that we were serving the hole in the market that I really saw in general, but especially here in Montgomery County. And that hole, like I said before, was our high performers, people who were overwhelmed, burnt out, and really wanted action-oriented care. So we work with individuals 18 and above, individuals and couples. And that alone sets us apart, because the majority of therapists are generalists. They can work with anybody, which is true, we can, but we choose not to, because I know if I'm jumping from working with a kid to a couple to an individual, a college student, I'm not going to have the most effective care, because I'm going to be jumping all across the lifespan in different modalities. I want to make sure that I'm streamlined and the best at what we do. So we work with individuals and couples over 18, all providing solution-focused, action-oriented care. And that's within the counseling practice. Beyond that, though, we also have developed services just that we saw needs in our community. And I'm one, if I see a need, I want to make sure that I can fill and support it.
Sure.
So from there, we've also developed a specialized employee assistance program that we work with small businesses, being able to give a better quality of care to their employees and support. Because going back to, if you aren't an entrepreneur and you are working for the man, and it's not a great one, that impacts you personally.
That's right.
It impacts your family.
That's right.
It impacts your children's life, everyone around them. And so I'm under the philosophy and the belief that if we can change America's workforce and the work culture, we can literally change the next generation. And
I agree with that.
It's huge, because we spend so much more time at our workplace than we do at home. So while we want to give due diligence at home, I think we should also be giving a lot of diligence in improving our workplace.
Everything you said, I relate to, because I always tell people, like, whoever you are in your personal life, you're the same way in your professional setting as well. We're not light switches that turn on and turn off, right? Like when the lights come on, I mean, unless you're some fantastic actor or actress, right? Like it goes on you're pretty much, that's who you are as an individual, right? So, if you're having trouble in business, if you're having trouble in anything that you're doing, you got to get your shit lined out on your personal side.
Absolutely.
And I hate to use strong language like that, but that's the truth.
Oh, it is. It is. And that's actually why I love working with business owners and type A individuals, because they'll say, well, I'm great professionally, but for some reason my marriage is falling apart. And so instead of, a lot of counselors try to come from the, okay, well, you need to change how you're showing up in your relationship. And instead, I work from, and all my counselors work from, a strength-based approach where we go, well, what's working for you in business, right? Usually that's being able to read a room, having really good people skills, being able to look at a problem and identify the most efficient way to solve that, being able to nuance through something. They have those skills. They're just not translating it at home. Yeah. And so then we look at, how does this translate into the home life versus the other way around? Because I don't want them to lose their effectiveness at work.
Does some of that relate to a lack of prioritization, prioritizing what's important in someone's life? I know it's happened sometimes.
Yes, but I don't believe it comes from a conscious place. I believe it often comes from a place of taking things for granted.
Sure.
And then also because most relationships don't work under a lot of data-driven points. They just kind of assume. What happens is it slowly creeps up on them. And so when I work with my couples, by the time when we start working together, we do regular check-ins, evaluations, we get a lot of data. By the time my couples leave, though, and I actually have a specialized program for business owner couples, is they're doing quarterly meetings with each other about their relationship. Just like in a business, they talk about financial goals, sexual goals, interpersonal goals, relationship, to make sure that anything, just like in a business, if you're low for Q1, you want to change things in Q2 and 3, we want to do the same thing in a relationship.
That's huge, because I always say this, and this is the first time I've actually heard or spoken with a counselor in this regard, but I always say, like, you know, if you're going to be married to someone who's a successful entrepreneur, right? Like, it's not for everybody.
No,
you know, it's not. Like, I mean, I've been married now for 2.5 years with my new wife, and I can tell you that I was single for well over a decade. And because I realized that, like, the needs and the wants that I had, a lot of these individuals, not that they were bad people per se, right? But they just didn't meet what I knew what I wanted, right? And I just didn't think that if I got into a very serious or deep dive relationship with them, or even when I started to begin to get into one, I knew that they couldn't keep up.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. So it's actually interesting, and it's why we started this relationship program, is because I was having so many couples come in with either infidelity or they're knocking on divorce's door.
Yeah.
And when I started doing a history, a lot of my couples had started a business within 5 to 7 years of them walking in. Or the infidelity starting and then they were coming in later.
Sure.
And it blew my mind when looking at it and just seeing this repeated data. But then when I pulled out and looked at even my own relationship, I've been with my husband for 12 years. But there was so much that we had to go through and change and communication. And he is the patience of a saint. He knew from the beginning I was chaotic. But there is a lot of communication. There is a lot of late nights of, I know I said I was going to bed, but I've got to put this proposal out and it's taking longer than expected. And there needs to be a lot of honest communication and being able to also recognize where the partner who isn't the entrepreneur, or maybe an entrepreneur in a different business, can help balance and make sure your priorities are always staying, again, that balance.
Yeah. I mean, the analogy I always use is we dance to the different beat of a drummer boy.
Oh, yes.
And you know, and it's very difficult because I think, especially if it's a woman, let's just say it's a man, right? It's the entrepreneur, and the woman is used to more of a traditional setting where her parents work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, right? It's hard for them to understand that long hours or the weekends or the ups and downs, because the other analogy I like to put out there is the difference between an employee versus an entrepreneur is, you know, an employee might work super hard for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, might be a supercomputer, but then they go home in the evening, they rest, right? So it's like a normal computer that they turn themselves off. We're like a server. We have highs, lows. We just never shut off.
Yes.
Right. So we don't always work 24 hours a day super hard, but the stress and what we deal with, because my brain's always thinking about ways to run the company more efficiently. You know, like how do I reach out to a customer here? How do I handle some marketing? How do I make the process a smoother process? Like every single thing that doesn't necessarily get quantifiable on a sheet of paper, right? But it weighs on you over time. And I think that it's hard unless you walk in those shoes. And some of the most successful relationships, and I don't know if you've seen this, is when actually husband and wife are both working in the business, but they're working in different capacities. There was a client that I had years ago. The wife worked in the office, handled all the billing, did all the administrative stuff, right? And then the husband worked out in the field. They had an oil and gas chromatograph type business where they would take samples, and he would run the crews out in the field. She would run all the girls on the inside. And at the end of the day, they had a very successful relationship, married for over 50 years, retired. And they just had this respect because they knew their partner was hustling and working just as hard as them. and they worked in different capacities. While he was out in the field, she was there. So they didn't get on each other because they had different roles in the business, but they had this mutual respect. Right. And they related to each other. So it didn't feel like each person was on an island, because a lot of times entrepreneurs feel like they're on islands.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Even their friends don't relate to them a lot of times. They don't relate to their friends either, unless they're an entrepreneur as well and go through that grind.
And that's been the friendship aspect has been huge. And I know extremely transformative in my life, but I see it a lot in clients too, is that our social circles generally completely change.
Yeah.
I have some friends that we were friends before we started the business, but the majority of them fell off because they didn't get it, didn't agree. They didn't understand the schedule.
You just don't relate. You don't relate.
There's no relating. I'm talking about being up at 10 o'clock at night working, and they go, well, just shut it off. You can worry about it tomorrow, or you have employees for that. And I go, that can't happen. I talk to my entrepreneur friends and they go, I get it. I'm the same way. And they're doing the same exact thing. And so it is, because this is a long-term gain.
Yep.
We often don't get those short-term rewards, especially within the first 5 to 10 years of a business.
Yeah.
And so it's keeping that long-term goal in mind.
It is a long-term game. It's funny. My wife, on her phone, she has, instead of my name, it says end game. In her phone.
I love that.
That's because she realized, and I asked her one day, and she told me the reasoning behind it. And it's also predicated off of, I always tell her, babe, it's not about front-end money, especially with clients. It's all about the end game and about the journey and about actually helping people along the way. That's where it is. So that's where Alyssa can come in and help you. If you're an entrepreneur out there and you feel like you're on an island and you feel like even your spouse, might not relate, the two of you guys come in, meet with Dr. Alyssa. Not only is her education in this field, but she practices what she preaches with her own husband.
Yes.
And that's key, right?
Yes. So being able to have the practical tools, because this isn't just coming from a textbook. And I'll tell people, textbook therapist says this, real life Alyssa says this. Yeah. Right? Textbook Alyssa says, okay, at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, shut it off. Textbook says at night when we're going to bed, my husband goes, hey, do you need to download anything? Because he knows the minute my brain starts slowing down getting for bed, all of a sudden I'm getting all these answers to all the business problems. So I'll go, hey, I figured out that employee conversation. Hey, I think I have this new marketing thing. We'll sit down, write it down, record it. And then you go, okay, you're good. I'll take a second. Okay, yeah, now we can go to bed. Right? And those practical strategies, it changes everything.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what's crazy. I will tell you, Alyssa, I'll wake up in the middle of the night. I don't know if you experienced this. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and just an idea pops into my brain, and I'll just roll over. I'll grab my phone and I'll put it as a note in there, because I know that if I go back to bed, I'm going to forget it, right? And I put it as a note. And I think that, if you're that type of person and you're going through this is the person you need to contact right here. I can tell you. I want to talk about your compassion for your clients and how you ensure that the clients feel supported throughout their whole journey. Can you talk about that?
So a lot of people, when they hear compassion, they go, well, someone's just going to agree with everything I'm saying and make me feel better. Right. We actually warn our clients before they're coming in that we're not sunshine and rainbows therapists, but true compassion means that you believe and you have empathy for the clients, but you'll also be honest.
Yeah.
And so being very honest, if a client is coming in and not working in the most efficient way, or they're doing something that's not effective, we'll say that and we'll confront it directly, because that is the way people actually feel the most seen.
Yep.
Is when you're able to call them out and be like, hey, I see you're doing this. Let's talk about it. And one of the other ways we do that is making sure that we're aligned with goals from the very beginning. From the very first session, I am talking about termination session. From the very first session, at the end, I go, okay, at the beginning, we're establishing goals. I want to make sure we all can work together well. At the end, I say, okay, from my understanding, this is what we are working on. And I'll list no more than 4, usually about 3 goals. This is what we're going to work on: individuals, couples, business, whatever it is. Are we in agreement? Yep. Because I want to make sure. I could spend 3 months trying to convince them what I know or believe would be the most effective goal. But if they're not bought into that, that's not going to work.
You hit on a couple of things there when you said that you even talk about the termination, the exit strategy when they're going to leave at some point. When I was married to my first wife, we went through counseling and whatnot. I've never heard that before. No. You don't hear that from a lot of counselors out there.
Most people don't.
And I think also the thing that resonated with me, what you just said as well, Alyssa, is what you're doing is you're interviewing them on the front end as well. Mm-hmm. You want someone who's serious, right?
Yes.
That commits to change. There's nothing more deflating when you're trying to help someone. I know in our business, if we're doing fractional CFO work or tax strategizing, and we're telling them, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, I need you to do this. And then a year later, after you set up these different companies for them, already had these tax strategies or the CFO strategies, and they don't implement anything.
Right.
And then they come to you next year and they go, well, I didn't see any change. Well, what did you do? You still have to do your heavy lifting too. I can give you the tools and the resources, but you have to put in the work.
Yes.
They're like, absolutely. Well, I thought you were no. We did this. We had this conversation.
Right.
And it's so deflating because when they come back to you, you want to see them accomplish those goals.
Absolutely.
And achieve those results. And I think that that's very important. And I know from our firm's perspective, as we've grown, we're very selective on who we work with now because we want clients for life. It's the end game. Yes. We want to change lives. We want to change the community by helping companies grow. So it creates more jobs in the community, creates more opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
And you're the same way, right? You want to work with these high level individuals, right? Yes. That want to scale, that want to grow. And guess what? It's 6 degrees of separation. This person knows this person knows this person. They're going to refer people over. Is how it works.
Absolutely.
And
it's really believing that model and believing in the person.
Yeah.
Not coming from a scarcity mindset of the minute they leave, well, that's it for income. No, our biggest referral are previous clients.
Yep.
Because they know, they see the work. I have people who refer me that I've also never met. They just know, hey, my friend went to you. I really liked that. I'm going to keep referring. I have referrals in churches I've never been to and walked into, into businesses. And it's just really astounding to me because the work really does speak for itself.
Years ago when I was starting my practice, a guy I was working with, he had an email. And at the bottom of his email, it said, the best compliment you can pay me is a referral.
Absolutely.
And when I first saw it, honestly, and I was starting out, so I was young, I was wet behind the ears, and I have no problem saying it now. I was like, A, that's very corny. B, that's a little pushy because I've never been a pushy person, right? I want people to do things because they want to do those things, right? But it was so true. And it took a maturation process for me to understand that years later, that is the best compliment someone can make to you is they refer somebody over.
Yes.
It means they think enough about you that they want to tell people about the services that you provide. And good people want to put other good people in good people's hands.
Yes.
And as you grow and you get older, that you realize that when you come across good people in any industry, in any business per se, you keep those people around because there's so many fly-by-night people out there, so many shady people. Right. I can do it $50 cheaper here, $100 cheaper there, but what is your real value though, right? And so listen to the people that refer you, understand the people that refer you as well, because you have to understand your audience, right? And so when you're dealing with these high-level people here, you're dealing with people who are serious, that want to change. So the likelihood of them, referring over like-minded individuals that are also serious is exactly the clientele that you're looking for. Okay, so we're going to talk about a specific topic today, right now. We're going to talk about sex therapy. And it's a very taboo topic today. A lot of people want to talk about it. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. But sometimes you have to talk about topics that are uncomfortable for some people. And so what we're going to talk about is how you create a safe space for your clients that actually come in and how they know that they can come to you with whatever they're dealing with, and you can help them get past those barriers.
Yes. So I wasn't offended at all when you sent the questionnaire. I'm very used to it.
Okay.
Sex is a taboo topic. I think in America, especially down here in Texas, especially here in Montgomery County, we tend to be a little bit more hush-hush, which we very much obviously respecting the sanctity and what sex is meant for and what it can be used for and how important it is.
Sure.
However, this is also an important part of life. And so when I chose my doctorate, it's a doctorate in professional counseling with a focus in sex therapy, it was multifaceted. One, I was seeing repeatedly how much the sex and the insecurities around sex we're really impacting the client, both
Yeah.
individually and in couples, but also the effectiveness of when we work with a client and getting comfortable talking about sex, being aware, hey, what do you like? What feels good in your body? How do you speak up for it? How do you have this conversation with your partner?
Yeah.
Which is really difficult. What was happening is when they're able to develop that, we translate those skills into other areas of life. So I'm under the philosophy that sexually empowered people actually run empowered businesses. Because if you can nuance down and be able to recognize details about yourself, how you're showing up in any situation,
Yeah.
being able to have the confidence to speak up,
Yeah.
have the practice regulating your nervous system so you can be calm in any situation, from the bedroom to the boardroom, as I say.
Yep.
And hold your ground when you are advocating. It's the same exact nervous system practice, but it just shows up differently and you get so much practice with it. It really changes both areas.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess it's difficult because, you know, you've got to deal with people who have physical issues, right?
Yep.
And a lot of times the intimacy is mental, though. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I think for some partners, they look at it and they go, well, it's probably a physical thing. And oftentimes, I bet most of the time it's not. It's just from my perspective, it's more of a mental thing, to kind of a barrier that they create. Is that a fair assumption?
The majority of it is. It sometimes can be a chicken or egg concept, right? Of the mental can exacerbate a physical underlying condition, which makes the mental worse. Sure. And so whenever clients come in, they say, oh, I think it's medical. I say, well, let's go to a doctor. I have really close relationships with a lot of endocrinologists, cardiologists, right? And so a lot of different doctors. But I would say you can be in the best physical health in the world, but if your relationship isn't what it needs to be, if you're not confident in yourself sexually, if you don't know what you like, if you're not having good sex, you're not going to want it.
Yeah.
And that's something of it's normalizing that conversation as well, of not just people say, oh, we have sex plenty. I was like, okay, well, is it good? They're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And so we talk about it, right? Talk about different types of sex and how that can really improve the relationship, but then also the intimacy and the closeness around sex. It goes beyond intercourse. It's everything that's related to it.
Yeah. And the next question we were going to talk about was the intimacy factor, but you kind of hit on that just a little while ago, because I think for most people, the sex it's not just the sex, it's the intimacy, right? It's getting close to your partner. And I think for whatever reason, I think most people, or not most people, I think some people that have issues with that, they try to separate the two. Like sex is just sex and intimacy is just intimacy. And actually a lot of times they're intertwined together and they're one of the same. And so people have different love languages and how they communicate and how they feel.
Absolutely.
And understanding your partner's love language, I think, is very important.
It is.
If you're going to be able to stay intertwined together and work through some of these barriers. Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely. No, you need to be able to understand your partner, but then also understand yourself.
Yeah.
And that is actually what I find the most defining factor, because we could give our partner what they want or what we think they want all day long.
Yeah.
But if we're not showing up and advocating for ourselves, it's only going to get you so far. It's a really good Band-Aid.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually fix the issue. And this is also, it's a little bit controversial, but this is where my approach is different. I don't work as a traditional marriage therapist where we do a lot of what does your partner need? Let's give it to them. I say, well, we can take note of what your partner needs, right? What do you want to do with that?
Yeah.
I don't want you to give it to your partner just because they need it. Do you want to? How does that align with your values? How you want to show up? Does this feel good for you? Are you proud? And if you've worked with me at all, you know this is my defining factor of I don't ask, did you do well or bad this week? I say, were you proud of how you showed up? Were you proud of how you showed up in your relationship? They'll be like, well, they didn't do dishes and I was, mad at them. And so of course I'm not going to give them sex. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. And are you proud of how you handled that conflict? Did you ignore it? Well, that doesn't feel good because you're just brushing it under the rug.
Yeah.
Did you blow up at them? Well, that also doesn't feel good. Or did you confront it going, hey, I'm concerned and I'm a little bit upset, right? Very few people who do the latter and have a calm conversation. Very few people then are going to continue and, well, now I still don't want to give them sex. If you have a conversation, calm, cool, and collected, have your partner listening and you have that collaborative conversation, it actually brings you closer and it raises the likelihood of you having that.
It's so crazy. I remember years ago, we're probably talking 20 years ago now, okay? The CPA firm that I was working for years ago, okay? And one of the partners pulled me to the side and he said, Jake, he says, one of the things you're going to learn about this industry is you're going to be more than just an accountant because you deal with their financial sides of things. People are going to tell you more things that you could ever wish to understand or learn about their relationships, what's going on in their life, and you're going to become a trusted advisor and a confidant in that situation. And I can tell you, Alyssa, that I've heard a lot of stories, right? And I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, do a lot of fractional CFO work, a lot of business coaching. And one of the things that I see from a lot of these high level individuals that are very successful is their relationships turn in tick for tack. Yep. And, you've got one partner. I remember there was one time, one of my clients, his spouse came to me and said, I don't know what's going on with my husband. He's changed. And I said, in what way? And so everything she started telling me was like, all he does is work all the time. All he does is this. All he does is that. And da-da-da-da-da. And I said, honey, that's a good thing. I don't think you understand. Like, he should want to grow. Well, he doesn't hang out with these people anymore. And these used to be his good friends. And I said, right, he's leveling up. You're mad at him because he's not the same person in his late 30s or early 40s that he was when y'all got together at 21 or 22.
Right. There should be change.
There should be change. The sad thing is, why haven't you also matured with him?
Absolutely.
Like, I hate to call it, a spade a spade. And I know you want me to side in with you, honey, but I'm going to tell you the way it is. And that's tough love. But and I still stand true to that to this day.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is the model when I work with couples, and even my admin who does all of my consultations now, she'll warn the couples before they come to me. They'll say, Alyssa's very confrontational. She's not always going to make you feel good, but she's effective. Yeah. Are you okay with that? And some people don't like me and they don't come in, but I'll tell people from the beginning, the goal is I don't want each of them leaning more into the other person to cater. I want each of them leveling up as individuals. But the terrifying thing is when one does and the other doesn't, there's only either this other person's going to level up, they're going to bring the other person down, or one of you is going to leave. And there's I'm really good at getting couples out of limbo. And so sometimes that means we have that watershed moment and they're getting a divorce when they leave my office. Or they're having the best relationship they've ever had. And so I am a very divisive counselor in that way, but I'm very effective in getting people out of a stuck place and getting them to yes, divorce is never what people are looking for, but it's better than a miserable marriage. And it's better than this really toxic limbo that I feel like so many people stay in through really the best years of their life.
Yeah. And look, man, cheating's not the answer.
No.
Like, that is the worst thing you can do. Like, I will say this, like, and I love your directness here, like, by the way, because people should be that same way in their relationship. If it's not working out with that partner, it's better to say, hey, you know what? Here's where things are. I'm at an impasse here. I respect you as a person, but your values or the direction or the trajectory you're going is not the same as mine. These are what my expectations are, because a marriage is a partnership, whether people want to believe it or not.
Oh, it is.
And everybody's got to pull their own weight. And the moment that one person's pulling more than the other, you start to build up resentment when that happens. And that's one of the worst places you can be, when you resent your partner. And that's when people run astray. People do things that they shouldn't do. So when some of my clients would come to me and they're like, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I said, don't do that.
No.
Don't do that. Like, have enough respect for that person. Tell them, this is what my expectations are. If you can't meet those expectations, I think we got to move in different directions. As hard as it might hurt, it's going to hurt much worse if they find out you've had infidelity, or you've done something else as well.
Especially if you're a business owner. And I'll say, if you're a business owner, often we feel like our marriages sometimes can be a lower priority. Your marriage is one of your biggest financial and legal liabilities in businesses.
Absolutely.
I see businesses fall apart all the time because of a messy divorce. And people say, oh, we can work on the marriage later. I'm just focused on the business. You may not have either in 10 years if you don't do due diligence on both.
That's right.
Because all that has to happen is one person gets a really good lawyer.
Yep.
And they completely destroy everything.
Absolutely.
Especially if you don't have the right paperwork. So I have lawyers are my best referrals. I send all my clients when they're starting a business, all of that. But as a business owner, I cannot stress this enough. Make sure you have a marriage therapist, a coach, a program. Again, this is why we run that programs, because I don't want to see marriages fall apart, but I also don't want to see businesses fall apart.
Absolutely. And
so catching this early, it's the best investment you could do, not just in your relationship, it's the best investment for your business.
Yep. And I always say this too, if once you realize it's not going to work, cut it out like cancer so the healing process and start all over again. Mm-hmm. You know, when you allow this and you keep picking at that wound over and over again, it hurts all parties at that point.
It's when I work with clients, I say there's a very narrow window of you're thinking about divorce, right? And then there's sometimes a larger window of, okay, let me problem solve, let me see. And I say, we want to get to that point where you go, you've tried your best. You're proud of how you showed up. Coming back to that.
That's right.
You're proud. You've done everything. When you hit the point of, I know it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You have a very narrow window before it becomes toxic. This is why the minute that thought happens, and I see it in my clients, and you know the difference of, oh, I'm mad and I'm going to leave, to, no, I think it's time.
Yeah.
I'm instantly sending them to family lawyers, doing consultations, getting all the information, because I don't want it to turn bad, especially if they have kids together.
Absolutely.
It's 100% possible to have an amazing co-parenting relationship, but you have to make sure it doesn't turn toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back on the sex topics for a second, how do you make clients feel sure that that's a safe space when they feel nervous or unsure about discussing some of these very taboo topics per se?
So we have questions about sex in our intake forms. And so I'll usually bounce off that, but I bring it up from the get-go. Obviously, I'm very direct. But usually that's what I find is the most effective in making people feel calm and comfortable, because they know I'm not going to feel awkward about it. And I'm kind of ripping that Band-Aid off, if you will. So in that first session, if they've put anything notable there, I'll say, hey, this is what you put down. What are our goals in this area? And then the disclaimer I always give is I say, you can be as general or specific as you would like. Do not worry about my comfort level. It's all about your comfort level. I was like, people have talked to me about positions and lighting and all of that. And it's actually fascinating what you can learn from that. But you can also be very general if that's what you're comfortable with. And I was like, but you have to let me know where that line is, but don't worry about me. And most of the time, people, that automatically makes them more comfortable. And we'll see over time, they get more and more detailed in their descriptions. And it's not to be graphic for the sake of graphic. It's talking about the emotional experience through it. And then I am always about, we want to translate the skills that we learn in one area and translate it elsewhere. And so we talk about what's going on internally, what's going on in your mind, how do you regulate, what's showing up for you, and then what does this look like outside?
I love that. All right. Without going into too much detail or specifics, can you share with us an intriguing moment or a lighthearted situation that kind of highlights some of these intimacy issues that you've dealt with in therapy?
Yes. And so oftentimes what happens is people don't add verbal context to physical experiences. And so one of my favorite questions is, talk to me about one of the most recent times where the sex was mind-blowing amazing, right? And they'll talk through it. And almost always the other partner's like, well, I had no idea. Like they had their own experience, but they didn't know what the other person was going through. And so and they'll say, well, what made it amazing? And they'll talk about whether it's lighting, whether it's what they were doing. Most of the time it's what they were doing before and the atmosphere and the energy that was kind of brought up. And so that moment of light bulb and going, oh, that worked. You liked that. And being able to have that detail behind it is really, really just truly amazing.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you ever get to a situation, I know we didn't talk about this, but let's say you've got someone who demands a lot of sex, demands a lot of intimacy, and you got another person that is kind of a people pleaser that just does it, right? Do they ever come to getting aligned in that regard?
Yes.
They do, actually?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so people talk about there's a it's called mixed libido, a higher and lower desire partner, which is 100% of couples, actually. There's always a higher and always a lower desire. They might be a little closer, right?
Right.
But what we look at, though, is on both ends, okay? So I look at the person who's I want sex all the time. We look at the why behind it. Some of it, they just also may have just a higher libido and drive, which is absolutely fine. But 100% of the time, there are other reasons as well. Oftentimes, this is used for emotional soothing. I feel secure, I feel distant, I don't know, let's have sex and then I feel better. Okay, well, that's just a Band-Aid. That's not effective. Yep. That's not actually connecting because you want to have sex. That's connecting because you want to feel better. And you're using sex as a way to feel better instead of actually talking. So it's adding more context behind this party. But then this party is the people pleaser. I look a lot at that self-confidence, that self-awareness of what's going on. And 100% of the time, what happens is this person, the higher desired partner, saying, well, I just want them to speak up. I want them to be involved. When this person does, this person rarely ever handles it well, because it's a lot easier to deal with a complacent partner than someone who is actually pushing back a little bit. And so when this person stops people pleasing and saying, well, yes, I want sex, but I would like it in this way, or I want to try this. This party's been living for years, sometimes decades, and they get it their way. And they're used to a mediocre level of sex as well, because this person was just giving in. Yeah. And so being able to have both partners where this person is coming in saying, this is what I want, this is what I'd like to do, and they're not just placating. Okay. It's in the moment, it pulls the other person back a little bit. They get a little confrontational sometimes. Sure. But if they push through it, it's actually one of the most erotic and attractive things a partner can do is say, this is what I want, and holding their ground with it in a kind and gentle way, of course, right? Not mean. But being able to recognize the other person isn't just going to give in and be weak. We are attracted to strength. We are attracted to challenge. That's what causes our adrenaline to spike a little bit. It causes some endorphins, which is how actually you keep that lifelong attraction, is by constant growth, constant change. And I say the relationship doesn't need to be edgy, feeling like you're teetering on the edge all the time, but there does need to be an edge to it of, I know that if I push my partner too far, they're not going to put up with, my shit. Yeah. That is one of the most attractive things that can happen. And so I see that work all the time, but it's not just getting this people pleaser person to all of a sudden get a higher drive. It's getting this person to understand the function of why they're using sex so much. And then getting this person to show up for their own sexuality, and then getting them to meet in the middle there. Gotcha.
What are some of the misconceptions of sex therapy, and how do you get your clients to understand the purpose and value?
So a lot of times people think sex therapy is just for a medical diagnosis, ED, vaginismus, anything like that, and that they can have a great relationship outside. It's just the sex is like this tiny thing, right? That's the biggest first one. And then second one is that sex therapy is very graphic and videos. Some people even think I'm going to go in the bedroom with them. I'm like, absolutely not.
Dominatrix stuff.
You're right. I'm like, absolutely not. I had to talk to my insurance person actually about that.
Sure. Yeah.
No. And so those are the two biggest misconceptions. And so with this first one, I usually talk about, okay, talk to me about the last time you felt close to your partner outside of sex. And then we talk about, when do you feel close to your partner inside of sex? And then how did you meet? What was your sexual life like? And then we find out where that disconnect started happening and then what it can look like to bring it back, which is why I love the question of, tell me about the last time you had really, really great sex with your partner. And then we build off that. And so that's where we usually try to bring that closer together and recognize sex and the emotional aspect of the relationship and life. Yeah. These aren't segmented things. A lot of people say, well, I'm too stressed, I'm too busy to have sex. Sex can help with that. Yeah. Sex helps with stress. Sex helps with all of this. And now I'm very practical. I'm a big believer in scheduling sex, especially for my type A couples. But we talk about how to do that erotically. It's not going it's 8 p.m. on a Saturday night. Guess we're having sex now. No, if you scheduled for Saturday night, that means I want you prepping on Thursday. Yeah. You are flirting. You are taking a shower. You are sending pictures if you want to do that. You are mentally preparing. You are listening to music. You are doing all of these things to prep for Saturday. And it's actually can be a game changer for a lot of my type A couples.
I've never thought about that. It's kind of like literally days in advance or whatever, you know?
So mind blown moment. All of us did that when we were dating.
Yeah, no doubt we have. Yeah. But we lose sight of that.
Yes.
And I know that we always try to say, and me and my wife, still today, we get so busy with the kids and work and just life, how it goes. And I'll say, okay, so Tuesdays, we got both kids there. My daughter's 16, my son's 11. Yeah. and I'll say, my daughter can watch our son, and we'll go date night. So we'll go do some bowling, we'll do dinner, or something like that. And sometimes, bless her heart, but she's so involved in kids. She'll be like, well, should we bring them back something? And I said, no, this is about us this evening.
Yes,
it's not about them. Mm-hmm. We have plenty of leftovers. They can warm it up. They're good. Fine. There's pizza. No, we're not. Yeah. This is not about them. This is about us, right? And so, but I think we lose sight. We say we have to still date our partners, but I can tell you that I'm just as guilty, right? Like some of the, I guess, cat and mouse games that you play, right? When you first start dating someone, right? You lose sight of that because we fall into those complacency kind of buckets per se, right? And I think that, how you keep that spark. And I've never heard someone actually say, you're kind of prepping for it, even if it's the day ahead of time, sending pictures, talking to them, being flirtatious, doing things for them. It's not just that Tuesday that you go to dinner.
Nope.
Because then it's just like a task or a chore at that point.
Yes. I tell all my couples that my belief is that all couples should be in a low level sexual tension at all times. And it's just...
Let's talk about this. Low level sexual tension at all times. What does that mean?
So that means my personality, right? I recognize I'm a sexual person. Yeah. I recognize you're a sexual person. Yeah. And I recognize we have sexual chemistry together. Mm-hmm. If you are missing any of those three components, Tuesday night on a random doing light switch is not going to feel the most effective. Right. And it's going to be really difficult. And so being able to recognize from when you wake up, for especially a lot of my women who they get busy, they get lost in kids, I'll say, wear something. Maybe it's not something that, obviously is overtly sexual to the workplace, but wear something that helps you feel sexual. And oftentimes what that actually means for a lot of women is it's not a overtly erotic something. It's something that makes them feel comfortable, something that feels good on their skin. We'll talk about what does sexually empowered women look like. And then they lean into that. For a lot of the men even, okay, what helps you feel sexual? And a lot of men don't think about it. I feel like men actually get a really short end of the stick with sexuality now because there's this idea of this, alpha male, high value, have to be doing this certain way, or the have to be overly emotionally sensitive and catering whatever you want, and, finish last type thing.
Then they fall into the beta format essentially.
And so what we're looking for is what does you being sexual that has nothing to do with another person look like? Yeah. Because I don't want any of my clients, male or female, I don't want their sexuality dependent on their partner. And what does it look like to you are a sexually confident and empowered person, even if you had no one around you saying that? And then leaning into that, allowing yourself that space. And I like bookending it or habit stacking it with meals. And so at the beginning, hey, do I feel sexual? Do I feel confident? At lunch, hey, how am I doing? Am I busy? Calming down, transition time at dinner. And then if you're checking in throughout the day and you haven't lost sight of that, then by the time you do go and you're with your partner at night, it feels natural.
I like that. So when we're talking about these challenging topics, how do you ensure that a client feels respected and supported when you're navigating these personal topics? How do you ensure that that's done?
I do a lot of check-ins. And so while I do virtual therapy, especially for my sex therapy clients, I really like them to be in person. And even for my virtual ones, I say I want to see you from the waist up so I can see body language and facial expressions because I very much pay attention to that. If I say something and I see a mouth twitch, an eyebrow kind of crinkle, I'll say, I'm going to stop for a second. Can we talk about what just happened? Right? Yeah. Was there some anxiety? Was there some uncomfortability? Were you thinking about an experience? And so it's a lot of check-ins for the client. But not only is it, I want to make sure that I'm not going to say comfortable because I want them slightly uncomfortable, right? But making sure they're in a tolerance zone. It's actually getting them to verbalize their own awkwardness around sex. And if I can get them to verbalize it, to breathe through it. Okay, you felt really awkward when I talked about, using toys. Okay, for example, you got really awkward around that. Let's talk about that. Where's that coming from? Would you like to get more comfortable with this? Okay, what could be something that you could be comfortable with starting with? And I actually get them talking about it to the point their nervous system is regulated again, which what just happened in their brain before it was I brought up toys, they got anxious. I got them talking about it in a calm, comfortable way. So by the end of it, we were talking about toys and they were completely calm. So it rewired that connection. Gotcha. And obviously it has to take repetition for that to stay. Sure. But it's healing for them to talk about sex in a way that is not in a erotic setting, right? So it normalizes the sexual conversation. And then it's also helping them connect healthy sexual components with each other.
Yeah, I can see that. That's good information. Let's talk about some misconceptions overall, just in counseling as a whole, not just in sex.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you address those misconceptions that are out there when somebody goes, "Oh, I got to go to counseling today," or something?
Yes. No, we see it all the time. And again, I'm very direct. But one of the biggest ones that we see is, "Oh, I don't want to talk about my childhood stuff. I don't want to talk about past stuff. I just want to focus on the future." Right. So I'm going to go get a coach. Right. And some coaches are great. But there's actually a lot of research now that shows how much the action-oriented, future-focused counseling is so effective. This old model of counseling is just about childhood stuff and talking about the past is really coming from an old psychodynamic medical model, which we will talk about childhood stuff if the client wants to. I have clients all the time come in and say, "Hey, I know I've got my childhood shit. I don't want to talk about it." I'll go, "Okay." If I feel like we're getting a point where it might be edging on that, it might be helpful, I'll let you know, "Hey, remember that point? I think we're kind of getting to it." Understanding how you were raised might give me some more context, but if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. Mm-hmm. We still have to address the current issue. So that is the number one misconception I see about counseling, is that it's only focused on the past and then coaching is focused on the future. No, effective, current, research-informed counseling is going to be current and present-day focused. We use the past to inform current procedures, but it's not processing it just for the sake of processing it. Unless my client comes in with a targeted, "I just want to process my childhood," which I think I've had 2 in the last 4 years, right? Unless someone comes in with that, I'm going, "What's going on right now? What change do you want to see in 12 months? What have you tried before? What has worked? What hasn't? Let's build on what's worked, and then we'll add in new tools."
Yeah. Mental health today. Mental health is one of the most important things. I say it's just as important, if not even more important than even physical health a lot of times. If you don't think a certain way when you walk in to, let's just say, an office or anywhere you go, if you think, you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, whatever, that's going to affect your physical health. Everything that you do, if you can't get your psyche where it needs to be. How do you prioritize mental health today with your patients and letting them know the importance it is when we live in such a fast-paced world?
Well, it's interesting that you say, I feel like mental health is more important than physical health, because really it's all intertwined.
It is, yes.
And so it's normalizing that, because I want my clients to also be aware of the physical symptoms they're experiencing, because it will always connect back to how it's impacting their mental, or maybe how their mental is impacting that experience in their body. And so my clients are coming in wanting change. So I feel like I have obviously a narrowed population there.
Sure.
But we talk about, okay, what are you doing right now to be aware of your mental processes, right? Yep. To be aware of your physical symptoms. And some clients have a procedure for it. Some, I go to my doctor once a year, or, whatever. My wife wanted me to come, a lot of that. They don't have check-in procedures. So again, we work with a lot of type A and business owners. And so I'll say, well, how do you recognize the health of your business? How do you get that data? Oh, well, quarterly reports, monthly P&L, stuff like that. And so it's like, okay, we want to get the same data for your mental and physical health. Yeah. So I do a lot of mood and activity trackers with my clients. I do a lot of those check-ins, a lot of journaling, not journaling, sentence free-flowing journaling. Some people like it. I don't. I'm awful at it. So I'm not going to ask my clients to do it. But journaling to document data, the changes in your feelings, the changes in your emotions. And I say, we're not looking at this to diagnose you. We're looking at this to just gather information, because this is happening to you and your body, whether you're aware of it or not. So let's just be aware of it.
It's a pattern that they're forming.
Exactly. What I noticed then is, and it's proven in science, right? It's a phenomena that the more that we pay attention to something, the more that we have the ability to change it. And often we'll just see positive impacts just from them tracking their moods. And so we'll start to notice that. Again, I like habit stacking with meals, morning, midday, night. How are you feeling? What's this look like? And especially when I have them document their moods, I do it at night, but not just how are you feeling at night? How did you feel throughout this whole day? Because maybe you had a really awful night, you had a really great morning. So maybe it was a mediocre day. Okay, let's document that. Yeah. But I'm very data driven in my clients.
I like that. What would you say, what role does education and awareness play in reducing the stigma about mental health? Because I know some people out there will think, oh, so you're going to counseling or you're going to this psychiatrist or psychologist, right? There must be something wrong with you.
Yes.
Right?
It's the biggest, one of the biggest misconceptions.
There must be something wrong with you, okay? But that's not necessarily the case. They're working on themselves.
Yeah.
They're trying to be a better version of themselves. And actually, that's kind of attractive, to be honest with you, right? They're trying to level up.
Yeah.
How do you break that stigma about
having conversations just like this?
Yeah.
I'm very I'm an open book about any single thing in my life, which in the networking community can be really fun because everyone knows everything. But it's normalizing these conversations because it's breaking that stigma around the secrecy of it. Okay. And what I'm finding, it's interesting too, even seeing with I work with a lot of relationships and dating, obviously. A lot of my women coming in will say that if a male that they're going out with has not gone to therapy, they will not go out with them because it's a huge red flag. Because either they have, it shows that either they don't want to go to therapy or if they haven't even gone once, right, and been curious, because therapy is so prevalent now, it shows a lack of desire for self-improvement. Now, I work with them on let's challenge assumptions and all that stuff, of course. Sure. But it is becoming more and more prominent. And anybody who's going to be stuck in that, no, therapy's bad or it's only for when you're, really kind of going downhill, I really feel like they're going to be left to the wayside and lose a lot of that high quality and high value partners that they're looking for. Yeah.
I would agree. It's a stigma that has to be broken, and like you say, speaking out about it, educating your clientele or even prospective clientele out there is probably one of the most difficult things. Is educating people so they can understand how you view your industry through a spectrum or a certain light, right?
So especially, and this is something I talk a lot with my business lawyers and business coaches about, is part of their evaluation process for new clients needs to be asking about their individual health, mental health wellness, and their relational wellness. And then working very closely with a coach or therapist like me that can come alongside, because again, you can have a business lawyer set up all the documents for this new business, not knowing that the spouse is about to divorce their client because of something going on. And then they're having to do all this over again. And or the business is dissolving or whatever it is. Just asking, hey, you don't have to tell me details, but I want you to be aware that things outside of the business are going to impact things. Absolutely. Do you have somebody that you can talk to? Do you have somebody who's helping you monitor the health? I have a lot of couples that after I see them for their targeted issue, they come in maybe once or twice a year, right? Yep. And it's not because they have something wrong. They just want to make sure they never get there again. And so if you're a business coach, business lawyer, I really encourage you just open up a conversation, connect with a local therapist or coach in your area, or you can reach out to me, and then we can really help to make sure that your work isn't going to be dissolved in a few years because of a bad relationship.
Absolutely. And you got to get your mind right.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you just said, it doesn't matter who you go hire to be your attorney to draw up specific documents. If you don't execute, right? Execution is key. Years ago, I used to tell somebody, I had a friend who used to come to me with all these different ideas. Jake, I want to do this. Jake, I want to do that. Yeah. I got this great idea. And one day I looked at him, I said, Eric, ideas are shit. Execution is everything. Yes. And he looks at me. He says, what does that mean? And I said, look, man, you can have the greatest idea in the world. You can have the greatest agreements drawn up in the world, right? But if you don't execute that, it's not worth anything. Nope. You can have a terrible idea. You can have but if you execute that flawlessly, it can be something very successful.
We see people do it all the time.
Yeah. And so execution. So, someone like Dr. Alyssa here, she's going to give you the tools and the resources that you need to take that next step. But you still have to participate. Yes. You still have to do your work. Okay. And so, if you're serious and you're serious about taking your company or yourself to a different level or your relationship to a different level, you need someone like Dr. Alyssa right here who's going to help you push through those barriers. I don't care how small it is. Believe it or not, it might be something very small and you go, well, 95% of my life is pretty much perfect. I mean, it's not, but most people, some people feel that way.
Right.
I don't see the value in that. You would be surprised, even that small 5% that you think is missing, and how that impacts and affects everything else, both from a mental state as well as from a physical state as well.
Absolutely.
And so I encourage you to find those inefficiencies, be honest with yourself, and find someone like Dr. Alyssa to help push through those barriers.
Yes.
So this is a question that I ask a lot of my business owners that come on board. I know you've answered this, but I'm going to still ask it, and I'll let you kind of spin off of that. How has faith guided your work as a therapist and as a business owner? I know you're more on values and things like that, but explain to the audience about your stance on that.
Yeah. So my journey with faith has actually been very interesting. I grew up in a very strict religious background that I left in my early 20s.
Okay.
And so from there, even though I no longer practice how I was raised, it's now often identified as a cult for a lot of people. And so it did instill in me the values of recognizing I can make change in the world.
Sure.
Right. I was actually talking to someone last night. I was raised to believe I could change the world, and I never lost that belief. I just changed the side that I was on and how to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to recognize that we have power and autonomy to do that. My doctorate was actually a very interesting choice for me because after I left the very conservative religion that I grew up with, I was non-faith-based for a very, very long time, almost anti, just because I was so hurt and burned. And then as I went through my own healing journey, my own therapy, realizing that faith does play a really critical factor for so many people. And I needed to figure out my own spiritual belief system and faith practice because there is a spiritual component just in the universe and world.
Absolutely.
So even coming in as a non-organized religion-based person, I chose a seminary for my doctorate. And the reason I did that is because I knew I wanted my dissertation to be around something around spirituality. But I also wanted to really make sure that I was able to show up for my faith-based clients in the most effective way possible and not letting any of my past experiences filter that. So now I'm at the point where my couples that come in that are faith-based, monogamous, all of that, are some of my favorite couples to work with. I really do. I have connections within the Mormon church. Actually, I have a pretty steady stream of LDS clients that come in.
Wonderful.
And I really love working with them because it's helping them marry, and this was part of the focus of my dissertation, was marrying how to have a sexually affirming life that is also spiritually affirming and congruent instead of them working in polar opposites. And so that's actually has been a pretty transformative thing for me. And so in that, it's recognizing our values, how we show up personally, relationally, business, in a spiritual, organized faith, no matter where it is, we have to be congruent. If we are out of alignment in any area, it's going to feel off. There's going to be increased rates of depression, but it has to come from an internal place. Okay. And this was a defining piece of research in my dissertation, is that when faith-based comes from an internal sense, right? People talk about, well, is religion bad or good? This is a defining factor. When it comes from I want to do this because this is what I feel like I should. This is where my desire is. I want to do this. So example, if you say, well, I want to go to church every Sunday because I genuinely want to, that is going to lead to lower rates of depression, lower rates of anxiety, increased relational health, all of that. If it's coming from well, I have to, because if I don't, then I'm a bad person. I have to because someone else told me to, then that's where we see the increased rates of depression, increased rates of anxiety. And so it's whether it's coming from an internal or external place, that's the defining factor. So when I work with clients and even in myself, I check in, is this coming from where I want to do it? Or is this coming because I feel like I should? And then helping clients find that freedom too.
I love that. Let me ask you this question. What role has professional associates such as accountants, marketers, or even mentors played in supporting the growth of your business?
Transformative. And I 100% say that networking and surrounding myself with really other high level of performers in business is the reason why we are so different from every single other counseling practice. From day one, I surrounded myself with some other counselors. The majority of my network, though, is not in the mental health profession. I am around a lot of marketing agencies, a lot of accountants, a lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers, and the business model. I pulled information from all of these other areas to inform my model. I also recognize what is outside of my scope. Right. And so hiring y'all from the very day one was one of our first things that we did, because I knew from day one, I don't know this, and money scares me. So I want to surround myself with people who know more, but will also educate me. And I remember it was a transformative moment for me. And I actually haven't shared this with you. I shared it with Jenny, but it was a transformative moment for me that really has defined a lot of how I work with business owners, because it was the first year that I was filing taxes as a business owner with y'all, and Jenny was helping me. And it was the first time we ever owed money in taxes, because I always been a W-2 employee. And I sat down, but I had been working so hard to save up all this money, thinking I was going to have to owe this $30,000, right, at the end of the year. And I didn't. And I looked at Jenny, I was like, why don't I owe that, right? I'm owing this amount. This doesn't make sense. And she's like, well, and she sat down and explained how money works, what write-offs meant, where tax brackets went, all these words. I didn't know what they meant. But we sat down and looked at it, and I remember exactly where I was standing, and it completely changed the way that I thought about money. It completely changed the way I thought about business, about my life, and realizing that things didn't have to be scary as long as I surrounded myself with people who knew more than I did. And I always tell my husband, if I walk in a room regularly and I'm not intimidated by anybody in there, I want to change that room, because I need to be at least slightly intimidated by more than one person when I walk in somewhere. And so it's completely changed the way that we do things.
You know, a couple of things I want to take from that is, one of the things that I live by is, you're the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, you know, your parents used to tell you back in the day, or at least I know my parents did, is, you know, Jake, that's not a good person to hang around, right? Like, get away from that person. Because you hang around shit, you're going to get shit on you, right? No matter what, even if you try not to, it's just, it's going to happen. You're going to adopt their values if you're hanging around low valued people. Whether you intend to or not, it's going to happen, right? And so choose those 5 people very wisely. One of those 5 people, if you're married, is your spouse. So that's very important to someone's success or high valued individual who's wanting to scale. You got to choose your partner wisely. You got to choose the people you associate wisely. And everybody you talked about, everybody you try to associate you with, these professionals that are like-minded individuals trying to also do the same thing in life. You surround yourself with good. Good's going to come from your life as well. And
as a quick note with that, because this is a pet peeve of mine, if you are a business owner, obviously you want to be around other business owners who are talking well about your business.
Absolutely.
Because you want to grow your business. If you want a good relationship, you need to be around people who don't talk badly about their spouse.
That's right.
That is one of my pet peeves, is the minute I hear people start talking negatively about their spouse, A, I can't relate. B, that's an indicator for me of, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with you, because toxicity grows. It's contagious. And my marriage, my relationship is too precious for that. I'm not going to allow myself around that. So A, watch yourself and the group you're with, but also if you're that person who talks badly about your spouse, change it, and you're probably pushing away the people that you want around you.
For sure. You also hit on something in there is, you know, you can't walk into a room and think you're the smartest person in the room.
Absolutely not.
You know, I always say this, man, you can even learn something from an idiot out there. I hate to say it, but you truly can, right? And so whenever you walk into a situation, there's a reason that God gave you the 2-for-1 proportion there, 1 mouth and 2 ears, right? You should listen more than you should actually talk, right? So you're never an expert in every single field. Right. And so, you know, you having the wherewithal to understand that if it's something out of your forte, something that you're not an expert in, you need to outsource that. And that's how you level up.
Yes, absolutely. I've had to change business coaches. My bookkeeper, I went from someone else to y'all very early on, and just realizing you also can't be afraid to leave something, even a business agreement or a connection, a colleague that isn't working for you.
Yeah, it will absolutely hold you back in life and everything that you do. And you have even a fiduciary responsibility in your professional life if someone or something is holding you back to make a change, because that also impacts your own family at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And so you have a fiduciary responsibility to your family, to your husband, to your wife, to your children, right? So you got to remove that toxicity is what you have to do. Can you share an example or on how you collaborated with the right professionals positively to impact their business or your business?
Mm-hmm. So everybody, right? But to really narrow it down, I love and adore our marketing agency. We tried a couple different ones before we found them.
Okay.
Again, we can't be scared to leave something.
And who are they? Are they right here locally or whatever?
They are. Yes, Harper Grayson Communications. They
Okay.
own Rachel Drody. She has decades of experience within the local marketing world and sphere, all over the world. And the reason I chose her is because I had watched her business grow from the same time mine had. And then the quality of work obviously was great, but the attention to detail and the awareness of where the social media posts, the marketing strategy was going, and the acute awareness of our brand, that was transformative, because she was asking me questions that as a new business owner, I had no idea how to answer, but she made me think of that. And what really stood out to me and why I love working with her is she has worked with Fortune 500 and government agencies, and she's taking all of that knowledge and experience and bringing it to me here in Montgomery County and now downtown Houston, right? Bringing those strategies and that awareness. And so it's forced me from the day one of working with her to level up and think like a Fortune 500 or government agency company.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So, if you're looking for a good marketer, that's probably going to be a good one right there.
Yes. Rachel's amazing.
Rachel, that's who you need to go to. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when starting your company, and how'd you overcome them?
So our company, and we hear this a lot in the area, is our company model is set up completely different than any other counseling center. It's all of our employees are salary based. They all have PTO. They all have health insurance, which may not seem transformative for those outside of the industry. But if you're inside the industry, you know how rare that actually is. Mm-hmm. Not only that, we work with a caseload cap. So all of our counselors have a guaranteed written down contract limit. They will not see more than a certain number of clients per week. Because what we were finding from both the client and the clinician side is that counselors in general were overworked, underpaid. They're usually paid if they work in a group practice as a fee split, so 50-50 or 60-40 fee split. Yep. So if they don't see the client, they don't get paid. Well, going back to who I surrounded myself with, I see all these other businesses working that work under a salary model. And coming back to values, I did not feel good hiring someone saying, I expect you to be available for 8 hours on Friday, but if I only book you 2 clients, I only book you 2 clients, you only get paid for that. That didn't feel fair. Yep. What this has done is, A, it makes us stand out and we get to pick the cream of the crop for employees. But also, it has forced us to grow and get really creative and innovative in order to increase our profit margin. And in this, I love challenges, right? And I loved being in a corner and getting creative. Getting uncomfortable allows us to, I love the books by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy when they talk about 10 times is easier than 2 times, and being able to look at how can we grow our profit in a completely new and innovative way that no one has done before. And when you do that, you pay attention to holes in the market, and then you're backed into that corner because you're honoring your values, but you still have to pay bills. Yep. You develop strategies like our customizable EAP program for businesses. So then I'm able to not only give businesses exactly what they need, I can also give my employees a better livelihood and life, because I genuinely believe that because they spend so much time with me, they need to have a better life outside of work. Because research also shows if your employees grow as a person because of their work with you, they will stay with you longer.
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure my employees don't just make me money.
Feel valued.
Exactly. Feeling valued, and they see that value. Yep. And so that has been a huge thing of being able to just get really creative in that. And then other, like on the more personal side too, is my husband's a local firefighter. So he's gone, he'll do wildfires as well. Yes. And so there is also a lot of solo parenting I have to do. Sure. And so that has been a struggle, but instead of fighting against it, we lean into it. My kids, I remember one time we had just hired on a new counselor. She was seeing a client later at night and she was a little nervous because she was new, wasn't familiar. I picked up my kids from their schools. We got lunch. Got dinner. We sat down in one of the empty offices. We sat and ate lunch. I waited until the counselor was gone, or till the clients were gone, and checked in with the counselor afterwards. How'd that go? How are you feeling? And being able to get really creative and allows me that personal connection with my counselors. Then my kids get to see it. Mommy, why are we up here? Well, mommy's the boss. This person works for mommy, and I want to make sure they're okay.
Right.
Not only are they, if they become entrepreneurs, they're going to treat their employees similarly. Yep. They're going to expect that out of their employers, and I sure hope they do.
And not just entrepreneurs, but just you're just creating the groundwork for just being good humans out there.
Absolutely.
And actually just caring, right? Like, and what I can pull away from that is the quality of the work now, because you limit the scope on how many engagements that you have on a weekly basis. So the quality that you produce is pretty much unmatched in your industry.
Absolutely.
And that's what's important. That's what makes her different right there. Let me ask you this. How do you balance being a therapist with entrepreneurship?
It can be a challenge, definitely sometimes. Whenever
an artist versus the business owner?
Yes. And so in there, I surround myself with a lot of good people. I have an amazing director staff who they help immensely. And so our admin director handles a lot of just kind of the day-to-day stuff behind the scenes. My executive assistant's amazing and being able to streamline some of those things for me. And so having a team is really big, but then also giving myself space and time. So I know Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, I see most of my clients. Wednesdays and Fridays are when I do more working on the business and just having that schedule in my mind. But there is also going to be a blend, right? There is also going to be a blend because of who my targeted clients are. They understand that, right? They understand that. They understand when I'm talking about numbers or billing and things, they respect it. Recently, actually, we had to change credit card processing systems. And for my clients who weren't business owners, well, what are we doing? And okay, whatever. My clients who were business owners, they're like, hey, I'm curious. Why? And so it actually had a really good conversation around values. I'm not going to share, obviously, financial details with clients, but I was like, well, it brought us from a 3.72 down to a 3% processing fee. And a lot of companies are going to pass that fee on to you so you don't pay anything. But I don't believe in that. I want to make sure I'm charging you cash. I want to make sure that I'm taking that processing fee. But I also want to make sure I'm giving the best quality I can.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. What strategies have been most effective in growing your practice, connecting with the community out there?
Networking is number one. It's actually also the main reasons I pay my employees salary is because I require all of them to do some networking in the community.
I love that.
And it has been completely transformative. It's the most cost efficient. It's the most effective. And it develops now. I can walk in almost any networking room in the Woodlands and they either recognize my face or the business name.
I love that. What trends or changes in mental health care are the most exciting to you?
I love that there's so much more awareness around modalities and a lot more research. Again, psychodynamic Freudian was all we had in the early 1900s. And then Adler came about 20 years later. Now we have so many different modalities and competitive research that I'm really excited to see that leveling up. Also looking at other more natural substances like ketamine or psilocybin and people using other sort of plant-based products to help and assist under medical guidance for mental health.
I'm going to ask you about somebody, and I don't know what your opinion is, and we didn't even talk about this, but it's just someone that came up. So do you know who Dr. Jordan Peterson is? By chance?
Vaguely.
Okay, so he's gotten pretty popular now. He's originally from Canada. He's a medical doctor, psychiatrist. Okay, he taught at Harvard for a long time or whatever, but he's gotten very controversial because he's kind of taken some political stances that a lot of people don't like, and so he's had to defend his medical license because he's very outspoken and whatnot. But he's pretty brilliant to watch and listen to. And I didn't know if you'd ever ran across any of his stuff. I went to one of his little get-togetherings one time. It was in downtown Houston. And while he's great on his podcast, I kind of found that he was very difficult to listen to in a setting. He almost gave me anxiety because he just continued to, I think I have bad ADD, but this guy was on a whole different level, but I think he just kind of has a brilliant mind. I didn't know if you know who he is or anything like that.
I've heard the name.
You've heard the name, but okay. Fair enough. I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, so we'll skip to the next one. So what advice would you give to someone looking to start their own counseling practice?
So don't be scared of thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things. It's what sets us apart. There's this idea, or really what's existing in counseling is you either work for a government agency, you work for a group practice where you do that whole fee split thing, or you work for yourself. don't be scared to be different. Don't be scared to think outside, but take some risks. I feel like our industry is very risk adverse. And my husband and I dumped almost our entire life savings when we started the business. Sure. But it was transformative. And I was so happy. I was so grateful I had a supportive partner by my side. But don't be afraid to be different.
You have to be different.
Yep.
Like if you don't set yourself apart, then how's someone going to notice you? You know, one of the biggest things I say for any entrepreneur, any business owner is you have to remove obscurity.
Yeah.
Right. So you can be the greatest doctor, the greatest lawyer, the best counselor, the greatest accountant. But if no one knows who you are,
it's not going to matter.
It's not going to matter.
No.
You have to be different. You have to put yourself out there. And I think that's great advice. What's one piece of advice you wish you would have received when you started your business?
I wish I would have sat down actually with Jenny, right? Or with y'all as a financial planner and kind of budgeting, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Jenny gave great advice early on about kind of general ranges of things, but I wasn't sure. And so I did a lot of live and learn. And so even recently I was talking to my husband about, hey, I wish I had had this idea 2 years ago, you know, be able to do this is what I do differently. But he's really good at, well, what did you learn by what you did, though?
Yep.
And being able to pull now. So now I know the importance of being able to work closely with my accountant and figure out what that looked like, being more involved in my finances.
Yep.
And then also recognizing and pulling, though, in those early years, even though we didn't have that, I learned a lot of what not to do. I learned a lot of personal experience, managing anxiety around that.
Yep.
But then set a lot of policies and procedures as well, which are now helping us.
Yeah, and to take on that and compound a little bit, you've got to be able to delegate. I know that early in my career, you know, I was more of this solopreneur, right? And it was real difficult for me to hire people. And I just didn't feel like the work product that they were going to produce was going to be on the same level that I could produce at that time. And it was very difficult.
Yeah.
And you've got to rip that Band-Aid off and realize they're human. They're going to make mistakes. You got to give them the education, the guidance, so you can step back and start focusing on running your business instead of working inside your business. Yes. How do you maintain balance and self-care while managing responsibilities of running a business and working with various clients?
So I admit this is a struggle. And this is where when I work with my clients, I'm very transparent and they're like, I get it. I relate.
Yep.
I live by my schedule. I'm very type A. I think that's why I work well with type A. High performers. I live by my schedule. I also very much make sure I have a lot of physical exertion. So every single morning I'm at the gym. I'm actually prepping for a bodybuilding competition right now.
I saw you. So, I was like, man, she works out. That's awesome. Yeah.
So I'm prepping for that. And what that does is it really does allow me to, so much of my life is inside my head and it allows me to get inside my body. And I cannot tell you how many times I've come up with amazing business ideas while working out, while cycling, while lifting, and being able to recognize that. And also the resilience and discipline it takes to show up physically for yourself every day is a very similar mental process to showing up in the business every day.
Let me ask you the psychology of what you just said there. You said these ideas pop in your head while you're working out. For me, similar things when it's when you least expect it, these ideas pop in. Why do you think that is? What do you think your brain or something allows you to allow that to pop forward? What do you think that is?
So let's use the analogy of like a table. If you're trying to organize things, you've got all the clutter everywhere and you're just organizing all of that. Whenever you start to take things off the table, then you actually get to see what the problem actually is, right? And how you want to organize.
Gotcha.
That's what's happening in your brain is you're, instead of trying to figure it out and force it, thinking of everything all at once, you're slowing your brain down. You're focusing on you're slowing your heart rate down from the fight or flight, right? And so in that, your brain's able to process more, which is why you get ideas while working out, trying to go to bed, which is why my husband asked, hey, can we download things? And we're able to figure that out.
That makes sense. Couple more questions and then we'll wrap this up. What motivates you to continue growing as a therapist and as an entrepreneur?
Part of that's my personality. I refuse to be mediocre about anything. Even from the time I was young, it was any project I did, I was going to be the best at it and sell it. And so part of it's personality, but also I make sure that anything I show up and do, I'm doing with integrity and I am proud of it, which is why I use that with my clients. And if I'm not pushing myself to give the best quality of care, I'm not going to be proud. I'm not going to stand behind it. I'm not going to be confident and it's going to impact everything.
I respect that. I respect that. So if there's one myth you could dispel about therapy, what would that be?
So it's bouncing off what we talked about earlier is that therapy is just talking about the past and we're just talking in circles for hours. It's not. We are focused on current care, what's going on, giving you practical tools, and I'm following up. How did that go? What did that look like last week? Did you do it? Right? If I have 3-4 weeks in a row and clients haven't done anything, we have a conversation. Do you really want to be in therapy? Because I don't want you wasting your time and money. Again, I'm a very hard-hitting, controversial therapist, but I love it. Effective.
When you're not counseling, when you're not running your business, what types of things do you like to do to recharge your life?
Yeah. So obviously weightlifting has been a huge thing.
Where do you work out at, by the way?
Villa Sport locally.
Nice.
About 10 minutes away.
Yep.
And so it's fantastic. And then just spending a lot of time with my family. Again, my husband's a local firefighter, so we do a lot of traveling. When I'm not in prep, we love trying new foods in the area. I love the Woodlands for all the concerts in the park, movies, things like that. Spending time with my boys. We go to the Renaissance Fair a lot. So it allows us, and camping. So it just kind of gets us out of there.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Alyssa. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And if you're looking for a therapist, someone to, especially if you're a high level individual wanting to even level up even more, want to work on your relationship, and you're in the Woodlands or anywhere in Montgomery County, I highly recommend contacting Dr. Alyssa right here.
And now we're in downtown Houston as well.
Downtown Houston as well. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much.
I
appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye.